Thank you, Ms. Matson. Mr. Lewis, please call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Veronica, Saucevo.
Hi. If you could please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
Yes.
Please have a seat. You responded to questions from Mr. Lewis first, perhaps Ms. Matson, who's on your left. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Pretty good, thank you.
May I move this easily, Your Honor? You mind moving?
I'm gonna move this up.
You can move it back here if you want. Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Could you please introduce yourself by stating your name and spelling it for the court reporter, please?
Veronica, Cecilia, Veronica. Last name is Saucevo.
And Ms. Saucevo, do you work for a living?
Yes,
Okay, what do you do?
I'm a medical assistant.
And do you know the victim in this case, Genevive Dawes?
Yes, I
How do you know her?
do. She's my niece.
And how old was she at the time of her death on January 18, 2017?
21.
First witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Both sides have continuing permission to approach throughout the entire duration of this trial. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to show you a couple photographs, ma'am. You just tell me whether or not these are photographs that you recognize, okay?
Okay.
First, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State Exhibit number 1. Is that, you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
And what is that?
A picture of my niece, Genevieve.
And was that while she was alive?
Yes.
Do you know when that photograph was taken?
Probably about three days prior to the shooting.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as State Exhibit number 121. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
And what is it?
It's my niece.
Is that after she was deceased?
Yes.
This time in our state center offer State Exhibit number 1 for all purposes and State Exhibit number 121 for record purposes only at this time.
No objection.
It's admitted. You may publish.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And 121 is admitted for record purposes.
She said she was 21 years old at the time of her death.
21.
This time I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
No questions, please.
Very good. Ma'am, you may be excused. Please watch your step on the way down. And Mr. Lewis, as you call your next witness, members of the jury, you might hear throughout the entire course of this trial that certain evidence is admitted for all purposes. That means you'll get to have it. If it's admitted for record purposes, that means you will not get to have it. It's for me. Okay? Call your next witness, please.
It's time to take call Erin Evans. And Your Honor, if there are any witnesses in the courtroom, we would invoke the rule at this time.
Are there any witnesses in the courtroom that have not been agreed to by the parties? If there are, then you need to leave. Thank you. Come on up here, please. Good morning. Before you have a seat, could you please turn and face me and raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
Yeah, I do.
Please have a seat. We'll be responding to questions first from Mr. Lewis and perhaps also Ms. Matson, who's to your left. Mr. Lewis, your witness. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
You can please state your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Erin, E-R-I-N, Evans, E-V-A-N-S.
Ms. Evans, how are you currently employed?
With the Dallas Police Department.
And in what capacity did you serve with the Dallas Police Department?
I'm a senior corporal,
How long have you been a police officer with DPD?
6.5 years.
And what is your current assignment? What are your duties?
I'm in patrol,
What part of the city do you patrol?
the Central District.
Can you talk to the jury about your background, your training, and experience?
Been a Dallas Police officer for 6.5 years. I am currently a senior corporal and as well as a field training officer. So I help train the new officers who come out of the academy do the regular training through the academy. We do updated training every 2 years, and I've also standard field sobriety test certified. I'm patrol rifle certified. As well, it's a couple of. I don't know how far you want me to go on that.
Okay, thank you. Were you with the Dallas Police Department on the day of January 18, 2017?
I was.
And in what capacity?
I was just a patrol officer.
Okay. And do you recall receiving a call at approximately 5 a.m. and responding to that call?
Yes.
Were you with a partner or were you alone that day?
I was with a partner.
Who were you with?
I was with Officer Liquor.
You know Officer Liquor's first name?
Peter.
Okay. And what was the nature of the call that you received?
I was a call about suspicious people in a vehicle in the back parking lot of an apartment complex.
And was this at the location of 4700 East Side Avenue here in
Yes, it
Dallas?
was.
Okay. Have you ever been to that location before?
No. Oh, yes, I believe I have. Yes, actually.
Okay. What specific information, if any, did you have with regard to this vehicle?
The initial responding officers they'd provided a license plate and a description of the vehicle. So the initial officers who received the call, they ran the plate through our system, and it returned that it was stolen. So they requested extra cover, and that's why myself and Officer Liquor responded as well.
You said there was a description of the vehicle that was given as well as the license plate, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you recall what kind of vehicle it was?
It was a Dodge van,
Do you recall what color it was?
green or gray.
Okay. I told you it was black. Do you have any reason to dispute that?
No.
All right, so do you in fact respond to the location at that time?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately what time you got to the location?
A little after 5, I'm not exactly sure.
Like 5 a.m.?
Yes.
What was the lighting conditions out there? Well, let me just ask you this, was it light or was it dark when you got there?
It was dark. There was some light from lights, but it was at nighttime.
And so you had previously testified that I believe Officer Hopkins ran the license plate and you guys were able to determine that it had been reported stolen, is that correct?
That's correct.
Besides that fact, did you have any other specific information with regard to the vehicle?
Just that it was occupied by a male and a female,
Okay.
the last we heard.
But with regard to being stolen, any background information, any specific information about the stolen vehicle?
No.
When you got there, were any other officers there on scene?
Yes, Officer Hopkins and his partner Alish were there already.
And where were they when you got to the scene?
They were in the parking lot in the back. When we arrived, they had told us that they had located the vehicle, so we had parked and got out and started walking towards them.
For the benefit of the jury, can you kind of describe how this apartment complex is set up as far as driveways,
Sure.
things of that nature?
It's kind of a rectangular apartment complex. It had 2 driveway entries on both sides, and then the parking lot was in the back. So the vehicle was located in the back southeast corner, and the first arriving officers, Hopkins and Alish, had arrived on that entrance. And I knew that, from being there before, I guess, that there was another driveway entrance. So we went ahead and I was driving. We entered on that entrance and stopped down there, and then walked across down towards the other officers.
Were you able to locate the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. Where was the vehicle when you observed it?
It was in the southeast corner of the parking lot, up against a fence, or facing a fence.
And were you able to determine whether or not anybody was inside the vehicle at that time?
Initially, no.
Okay. Is there anything keeping you or obstructing your view from actually looking inside and seeing the vehicle?
Yes, the windows were fogged up. Could not see.
So, how many officers on scene at this particular point?
4 at that time.
Okay. So what do you do at that point?
We started dressing the car. We're doing what we call a modified felony traffic stop, because we had the car was reported stolen, so that's just felony level, and generally we like to address that in a different manner. We address it from a distance and with our weapons drawn towards the car. So we started doing that, calling out to the vehicle, announcing police, and trying to get them to respond to us and get them out of the vehicle.
Okay. And you kind of alluded to this in your last comment, but just kind of walk us through what a felony stop is. What's the procedure for that?
On a traffic stop, you'd pull them over. We'd have 2 vehicles with 4 officers. Ideally, get behind the cover, announce them with our guns drawn, directing them to get out of the vehicle, that we can see them one at a time. And then we call them towards us, and then we get them out, put them in detention with handcuffs, and then continue from there.
You said this was a modified felony stop. What
Yeah.
does that mean?
Because it wasn't technically a traffic stop, so we were just seeing the vehicle, and it was already stopped. But because they were in a vehicle and the vehicle was reported stolen, we went ahead and wanted to approach them in a safe manner as we could.
At some point, the officers arrived on scene.
Yes.
Who arrived?
It was Officer Hess and Officer Kemple.
Do you recall what was going on when they arrived at the scene?
We were still in the process of trying to address the people in the vehicle to see if anybody was in there. We still had not determined if anybody was in there or not.
Okay. So what happened at that point?
It was suggested that we're going to have to essentially move up because we're not getting any response from anybody in the vehicle. We have to move up to see if we can see if anybody's actually in there. Officer Hess at that time suggested that we pull a car up behind the vehicle and alert the siren and horn to try to, something louder to get their attention, and then we could move up and address the vehicle and see if we could see inside.
Okay. So with regard to Officer Hess bringing in the squad car, do you know whose squad car that was? Was that his squad car or another officer?
I believe it was Hopkins and Alish's squad car, because I think when they had parked, they had that blocked. So I think that was the first available one he pulled up.
And you may have testified to this, I'm sorry if I missed it, but were both entrances blocked at that point?
Yes.
Okay. And that was by your car and the other pair of officers' car?
Yes.
So what happens once Officer Hess pulls the squad car up?
He honks the horn, alerts the overhead siren for a second. We come in close. I'm at the back right passenger side area, and then some other officers went on the side so they could see directly in from the passenger side to try to see if we could see anybody and give commands as well.
And you have to determine whether or not anybody's inside the vehicle at that point?
After several commands, someone did say that they saw movement in there, and then we determined that someone was actually inside the vehicle at that point. And then at that point, there were more commands given. Let me see your hands, Dallas Police. There are several commands given.
You mentioned another officer making statements about somebody inside the vehicle. Do you recall what those statements were?
One of the officers said, I guess, that they were sleeping.
Did they indicate how many people they saw inside the vehicle?
I don't recall a number, no.
So at that point, you guys had knowledge that there were people inside the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
And they were sleeping?
Yes.
Okay. So what happens at that point?
More commands are given. I still can't see anybody from my angle. The windows are still fogged. There's no one saying that they're responding. That they're just continuing to give commands. Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands. After several commands, the vehicle then turns on. So that was, the indication of something's about to happen. So at that point, we're still giving commands, and then we start to back up as well. Officer Hess had gotten into the squad car he pulled up and pulled it closer to the van to help keep it from backing out, to help so that keep him from leaving, I guess. And then the van backed into the squad car. So that alerted, okay, they're obviously trying to leave.
One second.
I'm sorry.
So prior to the vehicle turning on, where were you standing at that point?
I was at where the squad car was pulled up behind the van. I was on the front driver's side of the squad car, basically at the back passenger corner of the van, that angle.
And were you able to see where the other officers were located at that time?
Some of them. I didn't know where they all were at that time. I knew Officer Hopkins was next to me, and Officer Hess was in the area because he'd gotten to the squad car. And I knew that one or two were on the passenger side because they had alerted and given commands from that side, but I couldn't see exactly.
So Officer Hess, he pulls the squad car closer to try to block the vehicle in, is that correct?
Yes.
Were you able to see when the two vehicles collided?
Yes.
Do you recall whether or not the vehicle that the two individuals were in, was it moving at the time that the squad car pulled forward to block it in?
It was not moving at that time. It had just turned on, so it hadn't moved yet.
Okay. Do you recall whether or not the reverse lights were on at that time?
They did come on, yes. I couldn't give an exact time of when he decided, or when he got into the car and moved the car, if the lights were on beforehand or not. That would be from the video.
And can you describe the collision between the two vehicles?
It just backed up right in, since the angle he had it in, he'd pulled it close enough that when it went back into it, it just hit it in the front bumper.
Would you characterize that as a ramming?
I mean, it's just a small distance. It determines if your intent is there to try to leave and get out through the squad car, then I would consider it ramming.
You would consider that what happened in this case a ramming of the squad car?
If that's the intent of the person.
So once the two vehicles collide, then what do you do at that point?
I start backing away because at this point, my belief is that they're trying to leave, and I don't know what they're going to do in order to try to leave. So I wanted to get behind cover, and I don't want it to be close to the vehicle. The vehicle then, after it backs into our squad car, it then drives forward and hits the fence in front of it, which at that point, my belief is that it's trying to get through the fence.
Where were you standing at that point?
I was back behind the squad car, again at an angle, the back driver's side of the squad car, trying to keep the squad car between me and the van.
How about the other officers? Were you aware where they were at that point?
Not particularly. I knew people were moving, but I couldn't see where everybody was going.
Okay. So what's going through your mind at that point as the vehicle pulls forward towards the fence, into the fence?
As it pulls forward into the fence, I think that it's trying to get to the fence. I'm thinking that it's going to break through the fence and that I'm going to have to put out over the radio description of what's happening, that the vehicle is fleeing, and letting other officers know that they need to respond and that we've got a vehicle that's taking off.
At the point in time that the vehicle moves forward into the fence, is there, do you have any fear for your safety at that point as it relates to the vehicle?
At that point, no, I didn't have any.
Okay. How about the other officers on scene? Any fear that they were in danger based upon the way the vehicle was being maneuvered at that point?
At that point, no.
So what happened after the vehicle pulls into the fence?
It's not able to get through the fence doesn't give way, so then it starts to back up. So that concerns me some more because now it's way out, that way it's blocked. So now I'm like, well, they're still trying to get somewhere because now they're backing up, so that made me raise my fear a little bit because now I know that what are they willing to do to get out of here. So I started moving again. As it's moving, I'm trying to keep the squad car in between me and it.
And are the other officers on scene, are they moving around as well at that point?
Yes.
Okay. So the vehicle comes back again, is that correct?
Yes.
What happens at that point?
That point is I'm moving back behind the squad car more for cover. That's when I hear the shots are being fired.
At the point in time, right before you hear the shots being fired, do you know where the other officers are located?
Not all of them. I believe I could see Officer Hess to my left peripheral, and I knew that another officer was in front on my right, but I couldn't exactly say who it was. So I didn't know where all of them were at that time.
As it relates to the moment in time right before the shots, again, was there any concern for your safety with regard to the vehicle?
Not particularly the vehicle. The concern was increasing because they were continuing to add on to making movements to show me that they're wanting to get out of here. I also was aware that I had the other exit blocked, so I wasn't as concerned for much of them trying to get away at that moment because I knew that I had the other exit blocked. But at the same time, it's also going to put us in a different situation because what if they find out that that's, what are they going to do at that point? But I was just more concerned of putting something between me and that car and getting in cover and trying to get out of its way.
Okay, well, let me ask it to you this way. At the moment in time that the shots were fired, were you in imminent fear that you were going to be seriously injured or killed by this vehicle?
Not for my personal safety, no.
Okay. How about any other officers at that time? At the time the shots were fired by the defendant, did you fear that there was imminent danger, either serious bodily injury or death, for any of the other officers that were on the scene at that time?
Not to my personal knowledge. I didn't know where they were, so I did not have any knowledge that anybody was in immediate danger, no.
And you had talked about how as the vehicle begins to come back, you're looking for cover and you're moving out of the way. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that the way that you're trained as it relates to being around a moving vehicle?
In general, we always want to try to have distance and cover. So as a general procedure is to try to find cover.
Now, did you fire your weapon at the vehicle?
I did not.
Why not?
As I said, I did not have fear for my own personal safety at that point. I didn't have a good angle to fire from where I was. I didn't see a target to fire at. Plus, I did see Officer Hess and possibly Officer Kemple were in my peripheral, and we weren't on line, so I would be firing past them as well. So I didn't have a good line of sight.
Okay, you talk about not having a line of sight, not having a target. Kind of describe that in more detail. What does that mean for the members of the jury?
Whenever we fire our weapon, we want to be sure of our target that we're shooting at and make sure that it's clear, for people and as well as other officers. We don't want to have officers in front of us because they could move in our line of fire. So we want to make sure that our line of fire is clear as possible and direct as possible and be sure of what we're firing at.
So in your opinion, you already testified that you didn't fire because you didn't have a target, but also because you didn't feel like the vehicle was a deadly threat to you or other officers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see any weapons prior to the shooting
I
in the
did.
vehicle?
I did not.
Okay. Did you see anybody holding a gun or anything like that pointed at you guys?
I did not.
Did anybody shoot at you guys prior to the shooting?
No.
Did the speed of the vehicle, did that cause you any concern as it pertains to serious bodily injury or death to either yourself or any other officer at the scene?
Well, the vehicle in general wasn't a concern for me as far as being a threat at that moment, other than at some point, if they're trying to leave, that they might come towards me. But we hadn't gotten to that particular moment yet. But as a vehicle, it's very heavy. It doesn't have to have a lot of speed. So speed in particular, and it was a small space, so the speed is not going to be a whole lot, but it doesn't have to be a whole lot to cause serious injury.
Sure. And you talked about the vehicle possibly coming towards the officers, but that did not occur in this case. Is that right?
Not to my knowledge, but I don't know where everybody was.
I mean, as far as it coming forward, you mentioned if the
It
vehicle
wasn't-
came forward, that would create another situation.
Yeah, it was not coming towards me.
Okay. Or any other officers for that matter?
I do not know.
Now, my question is, did it come forward? So at the time the shots were fired, the vehicle was moving in reverse, correct?
Yes.
Did the vehicle ever come forward towards you or any other officers?
Oh, okay, so it's forward? No.
Okay. When you heard the gunshots What were you thinking? Were you surprised you gunshots at that point?
I was a little, it caught me off guard, because I wasn't seeing a threat. I was trying to move away from the vehicle. So when the shots were fired, it did alert me to what is going on, that for the reason of shots being fired. Are they, is there a weapon being displayed? Is there some kind of, something that's happening that I didn't see that would put us in that situation? So it was kind of, I hadn't seen the immediate threat to me yet, so when the shot started, I was, okay, what's going on?
When you talked about moving around, looking for cover, trying to get out of the path of the vehicle, would you expect other officers to do the same?
Yes.
Are you familiar with DPD's general orders as it pertains to shooting at moving vehicles?
At that time, I don't think we had necessarily one specifically written at that time. I could be wrong.
Okay. If I told you there was something in place, would you be surprised to know that?
No.
Okay. The general orders that you are familiar with, can you describe those for the members of the jury as pertains to shooting at moving vehicles, and whether or not that's allowed?
We don't want to shoot at moving vehicles, generally because it's a less percentage of actually stopping the vehicle. Our general policy is to get out of the way of the moving vehicle if at all possible, and to shoot as a last resort.
Last resort being that the vehicle caused serious bodily injury or death to somebody else, is that correct?
Yes.
So you're trained to actually move out of the way of the vehicle as opposed to shoot, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's what you did, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens after the shots are fired? What do you do?
I am behind the squad car at this point. I'm on now the back passenger side. Commands are being given to the occupants of the vehicle. The glass is now broken, so I can see the driver. So I'm watching the driver as commands are being given to address the passenger that we can't actually see at this point because the seat was actually laid back. And so he was below the line of sight of the door, but the officers knew that he was in there from seeing him from the initial, I guess. So, and our policy is always to address people that there may be more occupants in the vehicle than you initially knew. So we always want to address the vehicle to see if there's any more occupants. So we addressed the passenger to gave him the commands to work his way out of the vehicle.
Who was giving the commands at that point?
Officer Hess.
Okay, there are obviously 6 officers on scene at this point, is that correct?
Yes.
Is there any talk about who's the one who's going to give the commands, who's the one in control, who's the one in command? How does that work with both officers on scene like that?
There was no talk about it. He just took that initiative. So you don't want a lot of people giving a lot of commands. So he took the initiative to give the commands. So we just let him go ahead with it.
Okay. And based on your knowledge, was the defendant, was he the senior officer out there as far as length of time as a police officer? Or do you know?
I am not aware, actually.
So what happens after he gives commands for the passenger to exit the vehicle?
The passenger makes his way out of the vehicle and comes towards the officers. At that point, myself and I think Hopkins went around to the driver's side of the vehicle to keep the look and approach on the driver, look for any weapons or anything like that to help secure the scene, the situation, and to see, the extent of what had happened.
When you initially looked inside the vehicle, did you see any weapons at that time?
No.
Okay. Were you able to see the driver at that point?
Yes.
And what was her condition?
We could tell she had been shot. She was still breathing, but not really moving. I started to open the door to try to check, to make sure everything was safe, but I didn't have gloves on. And Officer Hopkins had gloves on, so he said let him do it because she'd been bleeding. But when he assessed what he saw, how she was shot, that he didn't want to move her because it might make her situation worse. From how she was sitting and moving might make it worse for her.
Were you able to observe any visible injuries on the victim?
I seen that she'd shot in the abdomen and then I think the neck, but that's all I could see.
And I believe you testified that she was still breathing at that point?
Yes.
Was she able to respond at all?
No. We asked her if she had any weapons or anything like that, any weapons in the car. She did not respond to us.
What happened at that point?
Heard someone say that they found a holster on the passenger side. And so at that point, get a little bit alerted that where there's a holster, there's probably a gun. So that was a little bit concerning that there might be a weapon in the car that might be within her reach still. So shortly after, I made my way over to the passenger side and saw the holster. They had the holster there. So I did another check of looking around in the passenger area to see if there was one. And I moved a pillow that was in the passenger seat and saw that there was a gun that was behind the center console in between the two seats.
What kind of gun was it that you located?
I don't know the brand of it. It was a handgun.
And so what did you do once you located the handgun?
I secured the weapon. I ended up clearing the weapon of any ammo because we want to make sure that it's safe if we can do that. And then I exited from the van, and I don't believe I went back.
When you testified that you actually cleared the weapon,
Yes.
can you describe what you did for the jury?
You take the magazine out because whenever you rack the slide, because whenever you rack a slide, it adds a new bullet in there. So you want to make sure that you don't have any bullets in the gun to put a new bullet in. But if there's one in the chamber, as we have, as we call it, that means if you pull the trigger, that a bullet will fire out. So we rack the slide to make sure to eject any ammo that's inside the gun, and then secure the slide back, and then make sure the gun's empty.
So when you racked the slide back, was there a round in the chamber?
I do not remember.
Okay. If I represented to you that there was not a bullet in the chamber, would you have any reason to disbelieve that?
No,
So if there's no round in the chamber and somebody pulled the trigger, the gun would not fire, is that correct?
that's correct.
Obviously, all of you all were police officers at that time, correct?
Yes,
Full police uniform, squad car, all 9 yards.
yes,
As a police officer, public servant,
yes,
and were you guys acting under the color of employment of being a police officer that evening at the
Yes.
time of the shooting,
yes,
including the defendant?
yes,
Were you wearing a body-worn camera that evening?
I was.
And were the events of that evening recorded, I'm sorry, that early morning, were they recorded on your body-worn camera?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibit number 6. I'm going to show you what that is and tell me whether or not you recognize that.
I do recognize it.
Okay, and what is it?
It is the video of my body-worn camera.
And have you had an opportunity to view this entire video?
Yes.
Has it been changed or altered in any way?
No.
Did it accurately and fairly depict the events that took place on January 18, 2017?
Yes.
This time, Your Honor, State's going to offer State Exhibit number 6. Send it to counsel for inspection.
No objection.
It's admitted for all purposes. Thank you, Your Honor. So for purposes of the jury's understanding, the audio comes on after 30 seconds, is that correct?
That is correct.
purposes of the record, I'm gonna pause at 109. Who was that? We heard somebody giving commands. Do you know who that was?
That was Officer Hopkins.
Okay, and where is he in relation to where you're standing at this moment?
He's on my right.
Okay. It's kind of dark, but is this his figure right here?
Yes, that's him.
Okay.
Put your hand on the window. Nope. I can't even tell what to talk about still. We're just gonna move up on it. Yes, no. So I just. Well, last time was a man, I think, so.
Pausing the video at 2:07. At this point, the defendant has pulled the squad car closer to the vehicle. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And at this time, he's, I guess you would call it, using the siren or loud hailing the vehicle at that time?
Yes.
And is this how you described all of you had moved up at this point?
Yes.
So at this point, do you know whether or not somebody's inside the vehicle?
No, we do not.
Still do not know at this point?
Right.
Okay. Are you drawn down on the vehicle at this point with your firearm?
Yes.
Okay. And tell us again why that is?
Because, like I said, it was a modified felony stop, and that on a felony of stealing a vehicle that we believed it to be stolen, that's how we address any occupants in the vehicle, because as you can see, we can't see them. So just to be safe, that we have them get out of the vehicle at gunpoint.
But just to be clear, the information that you have from dispatch, 2 individuals in the car, is that correct? A male and a female?
Correct.
Peter, do you see anybody?
So at this time, pausing at 2:37, you hear somebody say it's occupied, they're sleeping, correct?
Right.
Who was that stating that?
I believe it was Officer Alish.
Okay, and is this him here?
No. Yes, because Hopkins is the officer who went in front of me.
I'm gonna back it up just a little bit to 27. Who is this standing in front of your camera here?
That should be Hopkins.
Okay.
That's the officer who tried the handle.
Over here to the right, if you can see this individual holding the flashlight, who is that?
That's either Officer Alish or Likwar, I can't tell.
Okay. .243.
That's Officer Likwar.
Okay, Likwar here. We see several lights shining on the vehicle. Did you have a light on your firearm, or did you have an independent flashlight?
I had an independent flashlight at that time.
Okay, but did some of the officers have actual flashlights mounted to their firearms?
It's possible. I couldn't say who did and who didn't.
Okay.
Let me see your hands! Hands up! Let me see your hands! Get your hands up! Open the door! Down, police! Now, police! Show your hands!
vehicle is made no sense. And
Causing at 344, so at this point, the vehicle ignition turns on, is that correct?
yes.
And so what does Officer Hess do at that point?
He gets in the squad car to move it, to block it in.
That's 143, check on 90 days, everything is going great on flight, and like me on Houston, stay away, property. Bring it on. Back up. And the arrest, like security, their uniform is warranted.
So pausing at 403, at this point, you're at the back passenger side of the squad car, is that correct?
Yes.
And there's an officer kind of standing in front of you, do you know who this is?
That appears to be Officer Liquor.
Okay, and I believe you testified earlier that you were aware that where Officer Hess was located as well, is that correct?
At the point that the shots were fired, it's kind of in motion, so it's hard to see. I mean, I knew he was in the car to move it up. I don't know exactly when he got out of the car, though.
Okay. And sometime prior to this, you heard him say, move, 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 back up.
I mean, on video, yes. I can't say if I remember hearing that at the time.
Okay.
Don't move! Hands up! Shots fired! Shots fired! 4700 east side, back parking lot! 7,3 and 140 Union Gateway, 4700 east side, shots fired. Show us your hands! 10-4. Let me see your hands! Hands up! Hands up! Open the door from the outside! Reach out, open the door!
Pausing at 440. Who was that just speaking at that point?
That was Officer Hess.
That was the defendant. Who was he speaking to?
The passenger of the vehicle, I believe,
Are you
or
certain?
any occupant of the vehicle.
Okay, let me back it up and play it again. It sounds to me as though he's speaking on the radio to dispatch.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'll play it again.
Right, yes,
He's speaking to dispatch at that point.
right,
He says Alpha 114, they ran the squad car twice. Is that right?
right.
Did that occur?
At least once. I did not see a second time or hear a second time, but I knew that once, yes.
Okay, so it was untruthful when he says that they ran the squad car twice.
Inaccurate. I wouldn't say it was untruthful to him. That may have been what happened, or what he believed to be happened, or, you know, when you're on the radio and things are heightened. But in the end, it seems to be inaccurate.
Okay. And so when he's saying that on the radio, who all can hear that when he's talking on the radio?
Everybody who is listening to the radio,
So all officers responding can hear what he said.
yes.
Open the door from the outside! Open the door from the outside! Open the door from the outside! You guys okay? Everybody all right?
Yeah.
Open the door! Step out, get on your knees! Step out, get on your knees! Now! Now, holy! What? On your knees towards me! Walk on your knees towards me! Keep moving! Keep moving! Who else is in the car? Who else? Keep moving. Move towards me. Move towards me. Keep coming. Keep coming. Keep coming. Keep coming. Hands on your head. Do not fucking move. You understand me? Do not move.
see a weapon.
Hey, somebody go out there and have me.
Pause at 6:36. Officer Hess asked you, do you see a weapon?
Yes,
And your response is what?
I did see a weapon.
Did not?
Yes.
No.
Pause at 6:52. It's kind of difficult to hear, but he asked you a second time, do you see any weapons? Is that right?
That's right.
And your response is what? If that
Is no. That's partially why I opened the door.
Did the defendant indicate to you at any point, up to this point, that he had actually observed the weapon?
No.
I got blood on. See if I can get her out. Hey, you got your weapon? On you. Huh? Yes. I'm gonna wait for the ambulance. She's got one in the throat. I'm waiting for the ambulance. Through to the throat. We're in the back. We're in the back. Yeah, that's where you guys at. On the back parking lot, 4700, she said. I don't want to move her. And right now, she's still breathing. Where's the ambulance?
Pause at 8:08. Is that Officer Hopkins speaking right there?
Yes.
Obviously, you guys recognize at this point that she has gunshot wounds, is that correct?
Yes.
And why is it at this point that no first aid is being given?
Because of the position she was in, in order to provide first aid, she's still breathing, so you don't really do CPR when you're still breathing. But moving her could put her in a different position where it actually makes it worse for her injuries, like bleeding-wise, and that it might actually make her bleed more out. And so it's better to just wait for the ambulance to get there so they can do things properly.
Pause at 8:25. Everybody keeps saying on the radio, one low sick. What does low sick mean?
Dying, essentially. It's pretty bad.
Okay.
Hang in there, man. Hang in there. Did he say that there was a gun in here?
We had a holster. That's all we got now. I have not patted him down. I have not patted him down. Listen to me, what you do. Actually, out in front, right seat.
at some point another officer arrives on scene and asks who all fired. Did you hear that part?
Just now,
Yes.
I did not.
Do you recall an officer responding and then asking who all fired?
I do not particularly recall. I know that it did happen, but I don't particularly recall at that time, no.
Okay. And do you know the procedures as it pertains to officer-involved shootings as far as all the witness officers and involved officers having to be separated after the shooting? Were you aware of that at that time?
I knew it would happen, but it was the first time I had been involved in it, and there's a lot of heightened situation going on. So I knew eventually we would be separated, but just at that time, that's not on my mind at that moment.
And at that time, the defendant is still there right next to the vehicle as well, correct?
Yes.
And Officer Kemple, were you aware that he shot as well at that time?
I'm not sure I was at that time. I knew that there were 2 officers who fired because I could tell, but I don't know if I knew at that moment which ones.
Okay. Were you aware that all the officers, both witnesses and involved officers, were still in the vicinity of the shooting location
Yes.
at that time?
Well,
Hang in there, man. Ambulance is on the way. Got the gun. Gun.
hey, Wilcox, tell the agency to hurry. Let's keep there. Turning up go. They don't need to come all the way back here.
Officer 1135, at this point, an ambulance has arrived on scene? Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You see on the video at this point. Did there appear to be urgency at this point to get her medical attention?
There did not.
Okay. Matter of fact, we hear officers kind of yelling in the background, telling them to come on. And,
Yes.
Just. Just stop right now and get out. Let's go. We can move the vehicle in a second.
All right, going to pause 1216, and for purposes of expediency, I'm going to move forward a little bit. At this point, you guys are putting up crime scene, things of that nature. Is that right?
Yeah. That's right.
So we're going to move forward to 1620, Officer Evans' body worn camera video. 1617. Calling at 1623. Can you identify these 2 individuals here?
That was Officer Lickwar and I believe the person who made the call.
Joe Samples?
Yes.
You trying to clear it?
Drop the magazine. Glad I didn't go up to him. I usually, on the spot, I would usually walk over there.
That was, right behind her seat. Like she had hands up, she looks like, and it was upside down, so that she had just dropped in. I didn't see, but the way it was right behind her seat with her hand was up like that, like it was up, the gun was tilted upwards, and it's blood on it, so.
Do you know who that was that you were just speaking to right there?
It was a sergeant, maybe Miles, I'm not
Gary
sure.
Miles, and he's a supervisor,
Yes,
and you're kind of describing to him when you found the gun inside the vehicle, is that correct?
yes,
And he asked you, did you see the gun in her hand? Right?
yes,
And you said that you did not, is that right?
yes,
So just so we're clear, the gun was found after the shooting, but at the time prior to the shooting, you didn't see any weapon, is that right?
that's right,
And you didn't see any weapon in the victim's hand prior to the shooting, is that right?
that's right.
Mr. Lewis, mark your spot, please. Members of the jury, it's 10:30. Please be back in the jury room in 12 minutes. We'll come back in at 10:45. All rise for the jury. Members of the jury, hang on one second. Please, during this break, you're not allowed to discuss anything that you've heard in this courtroom. You're not allowed to do any independent research. Don't look anything up on your phone or talk about anything to anybody. Clear? Very good. Thank you very much. Court's in recess. Court's in recess. Thank you.